Hey everybody, this is Peter with Tabletop Gaming Guild, and today I'm coming to you with another review of a card game. And today's review is Star Trek: The Next Generation Fluxx. And so this is going to go ahead and be built off the idea of the original Fluxx game, which has been around for a little while. And for those of you who may not have played Fluxx before, it starts off very general, very easy, where each person starts off with 3 cards in their hand, and then on their turn, they're going to draw a card and they're going to play a card. But as the game progresses, there are new rules added to the game, which may cause people to draw more cards or play more cards. And everyone's going to be playing towards a specific goal, but that goal is also going to change. And so the game constantly stays in flux, like the title says. But today we're going to look at the Star Trek: The Next Generation version of Fluxx, and we'll go down to the table. We'll take a look at some of the cards, some of the characters that you may know from the Star Trek: The Next Generation show. And we'll talk a little bit about the mechanics, and then we'll come back up here afterwards, and I'll tell you my thoughts on Star Trek: The Next Generation Fluxx. All right, everybody, now that we have the Star Trek: The Next Generation Fluxx box open and laid out, you can see all of the different card types that you will have in a game of Star Trek: The Next Generation Fluxx. You will have the basic rules card. You will have all of the new rule cards that can get played and change the rules of the game. You'll have your action cards, which allow you to take the actions stated on the card, and some of those are very much Star Trek theme focused, and then some of them are very generic action cards that you will see in just about any Fluxx game. You have your surprise cards, which will allow you to take turns outside of your turn, or things that you can do during your turn that are different than the normal draw and play. You have your keeper cards, which are the cards that you're trying to gain throughout play. Have them in your play area, and those will help you meet the goals that you're trying to meet as well. There are creeper cards. These are cards that are generally seen as bad or detrimental. They're going to stop you from being able to win unless the goal specifically asks for you to have it. And there aren't too many of those. The majority of the goals want you to have keepers, not creepers. And a lot of times, if you have the right keepers and you have a creeper, it's going to stop you from being able to win. So you got to figure out ways to get rid of the creepers. Again, unless you have one of the weird goals out there that want you to have creepers, like this one right here, which is you will be assimilated. And that wants you to have the Borg cube and the Borgs themselves. So that's one of the weird goals where it wants you to have actually 2 creepers instead of no creepers, or maybe just 1, but that wants you to have 2 creepers. Then there's, like I said, we have the creepers, we have the goal cards, and we have the ungoal card. And the ungoal card, I think, is maybe a little bit new for the Fluxx games. It's not been in any of the Fluxx games that I have played previously, but it is in the Star Trek version of Fluxx here. And this is resistance is futile. It says if the Borg and Borg cube are both in play, and each player has been visited by one or the other, and no one has the Enterprise, then all players lose. So it's very unlikely that this is going to actually come into play, but there's the possibility that nobody could win, but they did make it a very unlikely scenario. So there's some really fun stuff that takes place in these games. You've got some very interesting things where the keepers give you abilities that you can do throughout the game. So Geordie LaForge here says during your turn, if you have malfunction, you may discard it. And so malfunction is one of the creeper cards that could possibly be in play. You've got the computer, and that is draw and play 1 extra card during your turn. You may exceed the hand and keeper limit rules by 1. And the other thing that I really like that I think was interesting for the Star Trek: The Next Generation Fluxx is that some of your keepers are crew, and so they have the little Star Trek symbol down here on the bottom left, and then some of them are equipment, and they have this little symbol down here at the bottom. And the Star Trek: The Next Generation Fluxx also has one other difference, and that is that you have data in the game, and data is both. Data is equipment and also crew member. So I think that's pretty interesting, and data gives you the ability to play 1 extra card during your turn, and that can be pretty powerful as well. So lots of interesting things here happening with the Star Trek The Next Generation Fluxx. Again, very much just like a normal game of Fluxx, but with a few different adjustments to the game. And I think it makes for a really, really fun time. Lots of really interesting characters. If you like the show, it's fun to be able to see how their flavor text can change the game and how it fits into the characters themselves. Same thing with the creepers here, seeing, it's the bad guys from the show, and how they might mess with the game as well. But now that we have looked at the cards and how some of them will adjust and play with the game, let's go ahead and come back up and I will tell you my thoughts on Star Trek The Next Generation Fluxx. All right, everybody. Well, those are the cards and some of the mechanics that go into play with Star Trek The Next Generation Fluxx. I like Star Trek The Next Generation Fluxx. I've reviewed and played Star Trek Fluxx as well, the original crew, and now I've also played The Next Generation. Very similar in style. There's not anything different between those two decks of Fluxx. There might be some fewer keepers or creepers, or action cards or goals, but overall it's pretty much the same game. And you can actually, if you want, merge these two decks into a massive Star Trek Fluxx game if you would like to. And we talk a little bit more about that in another video, because I'll be doing a video about an expansion that brings those two decks together. But yeah, so this is Star Trek The Next Generation Fluxx. If you enjoy the Fluxx games by Looney Labs, and you love Star Trek The Next Generation, you love Picard, you love Data, you love all those other characters, then this is a no-brainer. This is one that you definitely should go ahead and pick up so that you can play it with your friends. You can play this with as few as 2 players or as many as 6 players if you would like. The game definitely changes in length of time as you get those players in there, because it's a lot more thought going around when you have more than just 2 players. But it is a good, solid version of Fluxx. And I definitely think you should check it out if you enjoy the Fluxx games and the Star Trek universe. So again, this is Peter with Tabletop Gaming Guild. If you enjoy the videos that we do, give this one a like, give it a subscribe. You can go to our website at tabletopgamingguild.com and check out our podcast and a bunch of other things. We have lists of top 10 games and a bunch of other stuff as well. We got a ton of other videos. Also, we've got playthroughs that we do. We don't just do reviews, we do playthroughs of games. We also review not just games themselves, but we review some of the things that go along with other games, dice, and all sorts of different stuff. So definitely check those out. And until we talk again, everybody, keep on playing games.